Imagine a world where a whispered name and a piece of lead could bring your enemies to their knees, bind their tongue, or even steal their luck. For ancient Romans, this wasn't fantasy, but a terrifying reality. We're about to unearth the dark secrets of defixiones, the chilling lead tablets they used to unleash curses, invoke divine retribution, and settle scores with truly terrifying magic. Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're journeying into the shadows of the Roman Empire, a world far removed from the gleaming marble of the Senate and the roar of the Colosseum. We're talking about a secret, personal, and often terrifying practice that reveals the anxieties and hatreds of everyday Romans. This is the world of defixiones, or cursed tablets. So, what exactly is a defixio? The name itself comes from the Latin verb, defigere, which means to fasten, or to nail down, and that's literally what these were. Spells intended to bind or fix an enemy. The most common material used was lead. Why lead? Well, it was cheap, readily available, and easy to inscribe. But more importantly, Romans associated lead with coldness, weight, and death. Its physical properties perfectly matched the sinister purpose of the curse. These weren't just idle threats scribbled in anger. A typical curse tablet followed a very specific formula. First, you'd name your target. Sometimes, it was a specific person, like Titus Egnatius Tyrannus, but often, if the cursor didn't know the name, they'd use descriptions, like the one who stole my cloak, whether man or woman, boy or girl. This made sure the magic didn't miss its mark. Next came the verb of binding or cursing. You'd write something like, I bind, I curse, or I nail down. This was the active part of the spell, the declaration of intent. Then, you'd list the specific parts of the victim you wanted to affect. It could be their mind, their tongue, their hands, their business, anything. One famous tablet from Bath, England, curses the thief of a woman's gloves, binding their mind and eyes and every limb. The level of detail could be incredibly graphic and personal. But you couldn't just write down a wish and hope for the best. To give the curse power, you had to invoke a higher authority, a deity. And not just any deity. Curses typically called upon underworld gods and goddesses, like Pluto, Proserpina, Hecate, or Mercury in his role as a psychopomp, a guide of souls to the underworld. By invoking these chthonic deities, the cursor was essentially handing their victim over to the forces of death and darkness. The plea was for the god to exact the punishment on their behalf. The language used was often strange and powerful. You might see magical words, or voces mysticae, like abracadabra, or other untranslatable incantations, believed to hold inherent power. Sometimes, the text was written backward, or in a spiral, or with strange symbols. This wasn't just for dramatic flair. The confusing layout was meant to magically confuse and bind the victim, mirroring the twisted, inescapable nature of the curse itself. Once the tablet was inscribed, the final step was crucial: deposition. You couldn't just leave a cursed tablet lying around. It had to be delivered to the gods of the underworld. So, people would hide them in places they believed were gateways to that realm. Graves were a popular choice, especially the graves of those who died young or violently, as their restless spirits were thought to be powerful messengers. Wells, springs, and underground sanctuaries were also common spots. The act of folding or piercing the tablet with a nail added another layer of sympathetic magic. Just as the nail pierced the lead, the curse would pierce the victim. So who was using these tablets, and why? The reasons were as varied as Roman society itself. One of the most common categories is legal disputes. Imagine you're about to face a rival orator in court. You might create a defixio to bind their tongue, confuse their mind, and make them forget their speech. Archaeologists have found tablets near courtrooms listing the names of the opposing legal team, asking the gods to make them stutter and fail. Love and relationships were another huge driver of curses. These weren't love potions. They were often aggressive, coercive spells. A man might curse a woman to be unable to eat, sleep, or live until she submits to him. These were binding spells of the darkest kind, seeking to control another person's will completely. Sometimes, they were used to break up rival relationships, cursing a lover's partner with misfortune or ugliness. Of course, competition was a major theme. Chariot racing was the Formula One of the ancient world, and the stakes were incredibly high. Fans and racers alike would use cursed tablets to hobble the competition. They'd curse the rival charioteers, binding their limbs, and even curse the horses, asking the gods to make them stumble and fall. We've found tablets buried near racetracks, listing the names of entire teams' horses and drivers included. And then there's simple theft and revenge. If someone stole your property, a cursed tablet was your way of getting supernatural justice. You'd ask the gods to torment the thief until your goods were returned, often to the temple of the god you invoked. These tablets give us a fascinating glimpse into the everyday frustrations and sense of justice among ordinary people. One of the most famous collections of cursed tablets was found in the sacred spring at Bath, in modern-day England. Here, the Celtic Roman goddess Sulis Minerva was the go-to deity for justice. Over 130 tablets have been recovered, mostly dealing with petty theft. One tablet famously reads, "I have given to the goddess Sulis the 6 silver coins which I have lost." It is for the goddess to exact them from the names written below. It then lists several suspects. This wasn't just a curse. It was a public notice board for divine retribution. But did any of this actually work? From a modern perspective, of course not. Lead and incantations don't have magical power. But that's missing the point. For the Romans who used them, the belief was everything. The psychological effect would have been immense. If your rival suddenly fell ill, or if a charioteer stumbled in a race, the person who laid the curse would be certain their magic had worked. And imagine being the victim. If you found out someone had cursed you and these things were you and always kept secret, the fear and paranoia could be paralyzing. Every bit of bad luck, every illness, every failure, would be seen as proof of the curse's power. This psychological warfare could be just as effective, if not more so, than any real magic. It's a powerful example of the placebo, or in this case, nocebo effect, where negative expectations lead to negative outcomes. These small, folded pieces of lead are more than just historical oddities. They are raw, unfiltered windows into the human soul. They show us that behind the grand facade of empire, the Romans were people just like us, driven by love, hate, jealousy, and a desperate need for justice or control when the normal systems failed them. They reveal a society where magic wasn't on the fringes, but deeply woven into the fabric of daily life. A tool for the powerless, and a weapon for the vengeful. The next time you think of ancient Rome, don't just picture legionaries and emperors. Picture a nervous merchant burying a lead tablet by a well at midnight, whispering the name of a business rival, hoping a dark god is listening. That, too, was the Roman world. Thanks for joining us on this dive into the dark arts of ancient Rome. What do you think? Would you have used a cursed tablet? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Until next time, stay curious.